Welcome to the High Performance Edge, the podcast for contractors who lead with building science and want to turn that advantage into a stronger, more successful business. Whether you're in HVAC, insulation, solar, or home performance, we dig into strategy, sales, marketing, operations, hiring, and customer service approaches that power stable, more profitable companies. Hear from top contractors and industry experts as we explore what it takes to thrive as a very different kind of contractor. Here's your host, founder and CEO of Energy Circle, Peter Trost.
Hey everybody, thanks for being here. My guest today is Brent Davidson, founder and leader of the U.S. Heat Pump Summit, coming up September 15th and 16th in Worcester, Mass., just outside of Boston. It's the fourth year of the event. I've attended and spoken at the last two, and in my opinion, it's one of the best of the year. What makes this summit different is not just that it's entirely heat pump focused, but that it's built squarely around the contractor. The manufacturers, distributors, software companies, and programs are all there, but contractors are at the center. Many of the people on stage are contractors sharing their business successes and challenges in amazingly open ways. Last year, I watched one very successful company hand out his actual P&L. There are both technical and business tracks and a unique format I like a lot. Everyone we sent last year got a ton out of it. And don't let the New England location fool you. It's definitely a national event. Through Energy Circle's support and sponsorship, we can offer a limited number of free tickets for first-time contractor attendees and High Performance Edge listeners. Go to usheatpumpsummit.com/exclusive, usheatpumpsummit.com/exclusive, or reach out directly to me at peter@energycircle.com. Here's my interview where we go into more specifics about the event with Brent Davidson of the U.S. Heat Pump Summit. Brent Davidson, welcome to the High Performance Edge podcast. Great to have you here. We're here to talk about the summit, the now fourth year of the incredible U.S. Heat Pump Summit, which is happening September 15th and 16th in Worcester, Mass., right outside of Boston, and a terrific event. Before we dive into the specifics of the conference, I feel like you are in an incredibly unique position in terms of the perspective on the industry that the organizing of the summit gives you. And I wonder if you might just start there with a little bit of your high-level perspective. You're dealing with manufacturers and distributors and contractors, both big and small. And at the same time, you're also doing so in a environment in which, it's a challenging economic environment for contractors, right? I mean, the University of Michigan study, shows that the propensity to buy significant household items is at a kind of a significantly all-time low. So just to kick it off, why don't you give us kind of big picture perspective on what's happening in the overall heat pump market?
Yeah, awesome. Well, Peter, thanks for having me. We're super excited. We'll kick it off first. The U.S. Heat Pump Summit, September 15th, 16th, outside of Boston. Worcester, Mass., if you're in the region, and Worcester, Massachusetts, if you're not, if you're Googling it. So coming right up here, about a month out from when I think this will air. And just, the only thing to say, we got the fourth event, second time in New England, and really the second year that it's a full event. So 2 full days, trade show, conference elements. We're at a real trade show venue, the DCU Center. And so we're super excited to be coming back there, and it's in your neck of the woods. I know you didn't have to get on a plane, so that's probably why you had to be on this podcast, is it's the only conference you're going to that you're not getting on a plane. Okay, so what we see, so my background's coming from the solar world. I was doing software work in the solar industry. I've built everything from pretty complicated tools for, multi-acre, large-scale, utility scale is the word I'm looking for, solar installations, down to sales tools for using the iPad going into the house, sort of related to like a solar ampli, if for those of you that follow the ampli energy guys. And I ended up doing this conference because it seemed like there was a missing link in the ecosystem for the trades around a contractor-focused event that was first and foremost about heat pumps, but as we go about this electric technology. And notice I'm not saying the word electrification for a strategic reason. Let's talk about the fundamentals of the comfort, the fundamentals of the home, and the fundamentals of the economics of your business. As relates to kind of what I see out there, I think it's interesting that this equipment has increased in performance substantially, even in the last few years, especially last 10 years. So if you're looking at your cold climate heat pumps, a vast majority, I don't actually know the numbers, but significant amount of, the US needs some sort of cold climate performance. The capability of this equipment is here. If you're not familiar with the lower end, below, say 40, 30 degrees or so, go educate yourself, go Google, go ask AI. We're not going to get into it here. It's not just a technical podcast, but these things can do the trick. And I think that the industry is really slow. The industry being contractors are really slow to be educating themselves. So if you're listening to this and saying, yeah, I'm kind of already doing it, well, you're ahead, and that's your lead, and that's your competitive advantage. If you're listening to it and you're like, oh, I've kind of been kicking them off. I don't know. Peter talks about them. It's time. So I think that's the biggest piece. And that's also the biggest challenge we have in terms of people taking Heat Pump Summit seriously. Yeah. Is what heat pumps in New England? What are you doing? Well, guess what? They work. If you do it right. In most cases. There are some asterisks. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But yeah, that's I think the current view.
Okay, that's good. Well, I think one of the things I just want to make clear to everybody, even though this is located in the Northeast, this will be my third year attending in Denver, and then last year also in the Worcester location. It is very much a national audience. So I guess I just want to be clear. It is not necessarily a Northeast focus, and certainly the exhibitor sort of selection, which is quite amazing, in terms of how many exhibitors are there and how many manufacturers and so forth, is very much, from a national perspective.
Absolutely. And, we do preference a little bit more talking about the cold climate things. Heat pumps are a larger chunk of the Southeast. But the other thing I would say around, the market and what's happening, I mean, when you look at the heat pump's ability to create comfort, they can now handle the cold. So you're not worried about having freezing customers. That shoulder season comfort's better. Your variable speed, it's an important distinction. Your single or two stage versus your variable speed. That shoulder season comfort's going to be higher because the thing can just run longer. You're not using a 0 degree design day furnace, to try to heat a home on a 50 degree day. You get that continuous airflow. And then as we look larger picture, your solar's coming, your batteries are coming in a way that I think is bigger than a lot of HVAC contractors realize. Solar does have some market, and like if your house is in the shade, it's just not going to do it. It's just not going to work. But if you're in a utility environment that understands the importance of batteries on the grid, which could be a complement to renewables, it could also just be that they're actually just higher performing than peak power plants, which would be a natural gas power plant. There are utilities that are just giving away batteries or making it really cost competitive to be pairing batteries with your solar, et cetera. We're trying to bring that awareness and saying, hey, if you're getting invited for the comfort to the home, if you're getting invited to the home for a comfort conversation, you are now having an energy conversation because all these things are interlinked. And if you're having an energy conversation, then you're talking about what would be the role of battery, for backup power, what would be the role for battery in your particular utility jurisdiction, what would be the role of solar. You don't have to install those things. There's people in your market you can partner with. But, these businesses are defined as how cheaply can I get invited to a home to then have that most comprehensive energy conversation possible to get the most revenue out of them. Yeah. So if you think about it that way, and that's why you see I know solar installers here in California that sell AstroTurf. We don't have a lot of water for nice green lawns. Hey, your deck, this spot would be nice, full AstroTurf.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's that equation. How much does it cost you to get invited to the home, and how much, comfort value can you deliver? And starting the heat pumps and expanding that to an energy conversation is a compelling direction and competitive one.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned how central the contractor centricity is to this thing, and how you built the whole thing really around serving the contractor, which is, in my view, one of the unique aspects of this, right? Most of the other conferences you go to have these, myriad audiences of program people and weatherization people and so forth. And yours, this event in particular just is very squarely aimed at serving the contractor. So say a little bit more about that and format wise, what the setup is in order to kind of serve that contractor audience.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I said, I mean, I felt that there was a missing piece around driving a contractor-centric conversation around heat pumps. So let's be honest, we're talking about making money, but to make money, you have to make some comfort. And it seemed like there was, on one end, some of these sales events that are ostensibly business focused, but kind of end up being a bit cheesy sales. And then there's some very deep technical events. Seemed like a lot of the technical people are a little bit afraid to sell aggressively, and a lot of the aggressive salespeople don't really see the point of doing something technically right. You want to make a spot for folks who are ambitiously trying to grow their business, but also want to do it in a way where they're going to have, happy customers, good long-term reputations, or communities, et cetera. That contractor focus, as it relates to the event, results in contractors taking the stage. We're putting people on stage who are having success with this equipment in a variety of climates from across the country, who are open to sharing basically all their business numbers with you. That'll vary a little bit contractor to contractor. But, if you can hear stories like a gentleman, Mike Mizimer, out of the Denver area. 0 to 37 trucks in about 5 years. Not 100% of heat pumps, but like 98% on heat pumps, he was saying. And then ended up selling the business to a veteran contractor who wanted back in the game. So, I mean, what a story. And Mike is so into this trade. He had wonderful business success. And guess what he's doing now? He's working as a trainer. He's traveling the state training guys. I mean, he can't get enough of this stuff. And, he's I'm trying to think of, there's the line, there's a movie line I can't remember. We're going to skip that joke. About Mike's mission on this earth to help HVAC and make comfort. Yeah. That's these kind of people taking the stage.
Yeah. I would absolutely concur. It's remarkable. And I'm saying this from what happened last year of just how incredibly open these people have been about sharing how they've succeeded, down to the point of people handing out their P&L. It was pretty incredible last year. One you've touched on it, and I think maybe it's worth elaborating a little bit more just as to how many different sort of specific business models have emerged in the category. There's so much attention to the kind of ductless only business model, and they do one thing and they do one thing particularly well, but you mentioned, this further integration with batteries and with solar. And one of the speakers who I got to meet, I was moderating a panel that he was on at the National Home Performance Conference, is Trevor Seeley also from Colorado, who has a company, Independent Power, that started kind of in solar, but is very much a completely integrated and comprehensive contractor. So I know he's one. Are you expecting others to be talking about these kind of expanding and morphing business models?
Yeah, we've kept it a bit more focused just to heat pumps for now, but like my excitement and goal is to be expanding more of those people. You sort of stole my thunder by, I was going to then add on and talk about Trevor. And then you said, do you have anyone else like Trevor? But we do talk about Trevor. I mean, I just talked to him last week in an interview for our newsletter, The Heat Pump Edge. It's theheatpumpedge.com. If you're interested, it's really a lot of similar content that we're doing at the summit, kind of behind the scenes from contractors. And, he was saying ultimately it does add some challenge going to this multi-trade, situation. He's got solar staff, he's got electrical staff, and he's got HVAC staff. He said, but it is undeniable the competitive edge that it gives them once they get into a home. And they're generally serving a little bit of a higher end of the market. And so these become pretty large ticket sizes. Once you're talking about, a heat pump, solar, battery install, potentially EV charging. I don't know if they get into any referring out any broader work, for the home. But if you can start that conversation with one, marketing touch point and then not have to market again to them, that's what I'm talking about of that.
Right.
There's probably some fancy business word, but expanding that value you can create for each customer.
Yeah.
They've done that really well. And then it also gives them a little bit of an upper hand when you're an HVAC technician or HVAC salesperson out there, you're having that energy conversation. And so even though that person on Trevor's team is just doing HVAC for their career, they're not doing all of it. They have a higher level of knowledge about the solar. And if you're not able to have a conversation about time of use rates or something like that. So it's in today's day and age, it's electricity for all these things. And that involves a different set of things from the utility, involves a different set of equipment at the home. And if you're not taking it upon yourself to learn and understand at least the fundamentals of how these things might touch the HVAC comfort, that's a missed opportunity. And another contractor that walks in the door that can have that conversation. And if you're in a market, like I keep saying, that has, like I'm in Northern California area, there's a very dynamic set of rates and policies and rebates and, all these things happening. If you can't come in and be an expert, on those things, somebody else might, and they're probably going to get that sale.
Yeah, good. That, I think the point of differentiation obviously is singing, the music to my ears. It's what I've been talking about all the time, especially, with in a lot of ways, and depending on the state, so many people hanging out a shingle saying we install heat pumps and very difficult. So that'll be part of the discussion in my session about kind of the state of heat pump marketing, and particularly the rise of this new AI intelligent homeowner who is doing the purchasing. So what else in the business track would you highlight as kind of the, as sessions you're particularly excited about?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned AI. It wouldn't be a podcast in 2026 if we didn't talk about AI. So we have several contractors taking the stage talking about how they're using AI. The most interesting one, I shouldn't say most interesting one, but the most directly like contractor doing AI is Zach Cooper Vistola. They run what is basically the largest residential HVAC company in New York City. It's a little confusing. You can find their website at hickory, like the tree, hickory.ai. The company that they bought was Stanley Roof.
Yes.
So if you want to track them down online, you can Google those. But I'd have to look up the number. But I mean, it's like over 300 trucks, or something like that. I mean, it's a substantial operation.
Exactly. Yes.
And he's going to be going in, and I can look up the title, but it's really how do they deploy AI through the whole company. They're an interesting test case because while they do have internal development staff, I mean, they're big enough to do that. They still have, this challenge of sort of build versus buy versus like get along with, or get along with like some haphazard solution that we all end up stringing together in our businesses.
Yeah.
So again, Zach's super transparent. Zach is really making this a priority. He's getting on a plane, I think that night, to go to the Nexstar event that is unfortunately concurrent to the summit this year. So if you are a Nexstar member, heads up, you have to choose or do what Zach's doing. Maybe you can sit on the plane next to him, pick his brain. But, contractors like that are making this such a priority to be at this event because of the things we're talking about here. Yeah. And then another one, this is actually a friend of mine named Jeremy, who's been doing a lot of custom implementation work for HVAC companies with AI. He's going to give not a sales pitch. He has strict orders that this isn't a sales pitch, but really an overview of just kind of what's happening with these tools. It's evolving faster than you can pay attention to, and kind of say, hey, in this area, this is really starting to develop quickly. So this category of your operations, you might want to start looking at that. This area, I don't know, if someone's trying to sell you that's probably the tip of the iceberg of they're trying to get you on a big hook of custom software development or something. And then a little bit of a mindset of there's this topic of, are we going to be using Service Titan in maybe even just a few years? I already know contractors that have self-developed themselves with Claude Code, which is a new AI, if you don't track it, it's only 6 months old, have really removed Service Titan from operation. Trevor, we were just talking about it's solarips.com, Solar Independent Power Systems. He was pointing out that Service Titan doesn't allow solar contractors to use Service Titan, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so they end up with two CRMs because it's sort of these different, so they're midstream on a project to go off that. And these AI tools have just made the cost of custom software development so much more approachable.
Yeah.
That they're even doing it largely in-house.
Yeah.
So if you're not engaged on, this is a full overhaul of how you can run the operations of your business.
That's great.
And it's not, it's not running your business. This isn't like handing over to Hal from the sci-fi movie necessarily, but it's just lowering the bar to making your own workflows that work for your own business, lowering the cost bar.
Yeah. Yeah. It is really interesting around the speculation about the potential demise of these large, very expensive software as a service companies, Service Titan and others. So cool. So other angles on the business track that you're excited about?
I mean, you talk about different business models. We kind of jumped into the AI realm, but Shreyas Sudhakar has an interesting business. So he's not a contractor by trade. There's really two in one category. Shreyas and Piers McNaughton. They're both basically really fancy engineers by training. Shreyas actually worked at SpaceX. Piers has a PhD in some kind of building science thing. They both have taken the track of build a lot of really complex, fancy software, way more than just like your own CRM, to do remote assessments in really honest, accurate ways that are very custom built for their workflow, not just kind of an off-the-shelf plug in your address. Okay, it kind of told me a number. And then in various ways, Shreyas is fully shopping those jobs out to contractors to install. So it's not an Uber model because it's not just like random people, but it's very much like he's a nerd in the office. And then there's just a little bit of a marketplace of recommended providers. Pierce has some of that in-house. But for example, I might get some of this wrong, but in general, Pierce, I forget the phrasing, but they're one of the only contractors in the MassSave rebate programs that are allowed to do the full remote assessment. I'm going to have to double check that. We just did a newsletter interview with him, but his technology is not smoke and mirrors. This has been sort of verified by outside parties and allows them to have the whole install, kind of ready to go. So Pierce, if you're listening, I'm sorry, I might have butchered that a little bit, but he's a very interesting guy. These are not traditional contractors. And if you want to be in the room with folks who are pushing the boundaries of this trade, those are two folks that are definitely doing it.
Yeah, I think that was one of the highlights of, or one of the interesting moments of last year was the presence of a lot of these kind of tech companies. And again, as we said about the contractors, people very transparent about what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And while some contractors feel threatened by those companies, there's certainly, my take has always been there's a lot to learn, right? And so
I'll clarify, those two are not investor backed.
yeah,
I know we've had some companies last year that are, some of these like Jetson and et cetera that are coming in the market in a big way with big dollars. But those are just, unique players. And I think we're only going to see more of that custom software approach as that type of technology matures.
Yeah, good. Well, speaking of which, in terms of the investment side of, well, private equity is controversial in some circles. People deserve to be able to build value and gain value out of what they've built for a company. So there are, I believe, some sessions about, what are buyers looking for and so forth. So say more about that.
Yeah. A couple of things. I mean, so I'd almost, for that one, reference back, Mike Misner would be an interesting one. I mean, he recently sold his company and I don't know what he exactly shopped around. We don't necessarily have a private equity speaker. That's something I really want to get a better, tighter connection to, because, I know a decent number of those folks, and just like your local, I mean, go down to the grocery store and ask strangers as they come out, do they think HVAC contractors are trustworthy? You're going to get a variety of answers. Go ask a bunch of HVAC contractors, do they think private equity is trustworthy? You're generally going to get a no, but all these companies vary. I mean, there are good actors that do good work in that. And I do think it'd be important to have a better connecting fabric between the folks who are out in the field, traditional HVAC contractors growing their business, and that investment community. For right now, we're sort of focused on let's get those contractors, kind of squarely in the room. But, Mike Mismer, Chad Simpson was one who attended and spoke last year. Assuming he'll be attending again this year. He's a traditional contractor that's sort of creating his own group that's been buying up companies. But if you are thinking about approaching a sale, these are still going to be savvy people who are in the room, who are growing large businesses, who are positioning for sale. And there's definitely resources there.
Yeah. Yeah, good. And I mean, I think one of the growing discussions is that PE is not the only exit, right? So good. Well, let's make sure we don't ignore the technical side, because this is one of the beauties of the summit, is the ability to kind of pick and choose between really excellent technical sort of presentations, as well as the business track, and the presence of so many of the kind of vendors of manufacturers, et cetera. So let's just make sure we touch on all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, a couple of names people might know: Jennifer, HVAC Chicks Jennifer, that you'll know her by. Bryn Cooksey, two that are definitely folks who are very capable on the technical side. Bryn's really interesting because his business, he's really gone strict in terms of the test in, test out approach.
Yes.
He told me he hasn't done marketing for the last $1 of marketing for the last 4 to 5 years. It's entirely on, they assess the home, they tell you what they're going to do, they do it, and then they tell you that they did it with proof. And so guess what? The results get delivered and people tell their friends, and that, as we were just saying, go out to the grocery store and ask what they think of, contractors. Word travels when you're doing that level of quality work. Jennifer, I'd have to look up her talk title, but she can go deep on anything. And then, another one, Jim Bergman from MeasureQuick.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So I assume your audience is probably pretty familiar with MeasureQuick, but being able to, pull together all smart probe readings, get good, measured, accurate things happening in the system. And the premise here is we're bringing, the folks who are doing the good technical work, who also have, that business mindset.
Yeah.
So, if you're looking to send, 10 technicians for their 101, this might not be the spot. If you're looking to send 10 technicians who are ambitious about rising the ranks of your business, this is absolutely a spot. Yeah. It kind of depends on exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, good. Let's just wind down a little bit and talk about, the pitch. Why should folks come? What, how you've done a lot of things, I think very generously to accommodate, contractors, especially first-time contractors. So let's just talk a little bit more about that as we wrap it down.
Yeah. Well, there's a common phrase: work on your business, not in your business. And I know a lot of events and a lot of trainings kind of say that. We've covered a variety of topics from, this is a national set of contractors who are, we don't pay the speakers. This is a common misconception of events. Your speakers, if a Shark Tank presenter is on stage as a keynote, they're getting paid.
Yeah.
Your bread and butter contractors that are pushing the field, the ones we're talking about, these are people who are paying to come to this event, their travel costs, et cetera, because they believe in the industry. And we've been working an entire year through networks like yours, through the extended Friends of the Summit, to kind of crawl across the country and find the folks that are motivated, that are doing this stuff in the field. So this is a unique group of people. This is not a group of people you're going to find at your local distributor training. There's a lot of great resources there, but this is an assembly that is unique. And then all of these speakers go to all the other events, and they're all saying, hey, this is going to be a spot where the size of the event, because this isn't as big as AHR, obviously, and the density of people that are wanting to do this stuff and wanting to come talk about this is very high. We're doing this hosted conversation table program. So round tables, 8-person each, where attendees and speakers are allowed to submit, hey, I want to talk about X topic at this table. And so there'll be portions of the agenda where, that's happening partially over lunch, partially when some content's happening. And we've built a little bit of app on our own, partially using Claude Code to facilitate this.
Yeah.
And, these are unique things to come and work on your business with the peers. Think about how many hours you put in the year on admin tasks, on stuff in the field, on solving problems, and then compare that to the amount of hours you put in the year, charting the future, of the business and being with people who might have that expanded knowledge set. That's not in a book and it's not in ChatGPT.
Yeah. I love that format, I think, and I'm so glad you're doing it. It's, it's really a great way to, learn a lot in a very kind of good, intimate session. And it's a great way to connect with the other folks that are there. So
yeah, definitely. And then the final pitch for your audience, for some channels where we know it's very high quality folks, we are extending a certain number of free tickets. So if you want to jump on those, it's a limited offer. We're sort of closing this on a rolling basis based on demand. So I can't tell you exactly, but if you want one of these today, I would go to usheatpumpsummit.com/exclusive. And I know we have a little bit of a lag on the podcast here. So we will consider that as we decide when to cut that program off to make sure that's still honored.
Yeah.
If for some reason you find it's closed, email me, Brent at US Heat Pump Summit. That's BRENT. And we just think it's important to get contractors who understand this mission to this event, and we want to do what we can for that.
That's great. Super generous, as I said. And, I just know from the folks that we did attract last year, just how much everybody got out of it. And really looking forward to being there and seeing you in person.
Yeah. You as well, Peter.
Thanks a lot, Brent.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
The High Performance Edge podcast is brought to you by our company, Energy Circle, the marketing agency that for 15 years has served the most successful high-performance contractors in the country. Curious about whether we might be a good fit for your marketing and website needs? It begins with a no-obligation, no hard sales discussion of your business and goals, and an honest assessment of whether we can make an outsized impact on your company. Check out energycircle.com or email me directly at peter@energycircle.com.